And I'd like to welcome you all tonight to the WFNB's April Open Mic Online. It's really great to see you all here. Oh, I have two more people to admit. I have to remember to keep watching that because if I don't, then people will be shut out. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all for coming. It's great to see you all on this lovely spring night. It does look a bit like spring here in New Brunswick. And we're looking forward to summer. It's sort of the first little bits of green grass coming up through. So I want to tell you about the New Brunswick writing competition. It closed on March 18th. We had 191, I think, submissions, which is pretty good. The New Brunswick writing competition is open to all New Brunswick residents and to all WFNB members. So the judges have the submissions now, and I think they have to provide their decisions by April 15th. And after that, the winners will be advised, and then they get to read at the literary soiree, which will be at WordSpring. WordSpring is going to be held at St. Thomas University in Fredericton, New Brunswick this year from June 3rd to 5th. The literary soiree is Friday night, which is the opening night. And also, if you attend, you'll be able to go to the New Brunswick Book Awards live presentation on Saturday night, which will be at Memorial Hall at the University of New Brunswick. And those two universities are very close together for those who don't know, so that the people who go to WordSpring can go to everything. So that's great. So that's all my advertisements for tonight. We have 11 readers that I can see and I would like to just kick it off then. I'll just remind you that there's the chat option is open if you want to talk about anything that you've heard tonight. You want to encourage anyone for their readings. You could do that there, and also to keep your screen muted if you're not reading. That way, that none of the background noise that you that's at your house will interfere with the readers. Okay, so I guess we'll kick it off. Now you have 5 minutes, and our first reader is Laura Brown. Laura, are you here? I see you.
Yes, I am.
All righty.
Okay.
We can't see you though, Laura.
Can you see me now?
Nope. I see your name.
I don't know.
Well, that's okay. You can go ahead and read.
Okay. January observation. Charlie Musselwhite's harmonica plaintively plays Christo Redeemer as the moon pulls shining sheets of water over the tangled wrack on the muddied shore. In the wrinkled current beyond, ducks forage, sufficient under themselves. All nature is oblivious to humanity, dragging its dark burden of shadow into the blinding light of morning. Trinity. A small wedge of stone lay on the beach, one side ground smooth, compliant with time and elements, two sides roughly broken, one sparking fire in the sunlight, while the other turns away, sulking in tones of gray. So much like our human selves, to depend upon light and how it falls upon us to make us appear to be who we are. Wind. Wind filled the sails that fed the world. Cargoes from exotic places fueled all commerce, the cruelty of conquest. Wind scatters our treasures on the ocean floor, sets trees to swaying, roadside grasses to amber riot, each dry twig nodding like a live being. Wind will carry our souls wherever they are bound, wherever home is. Next, the last one is crow. Hear the crow in the wood, that loquacious philosopher, that Irish orator of crowdom, filibustering in the late afternoon shadows. And that's it.
That's wonderful, Laura. Thank you. I've heard a few loquacious crows in my day as well. We lived in a home where my oldest daughter, when she was little, the crows would gather outside of her window, and I would be so upset because on a Saturday morning when you want to sleep in, they would be cawing outside her window at 5 a.m. and you would hear her go caw caw caw. So I was like, that's it for Saturday morning. Anyway, Ephraim, would you like?
Yeah, I'm gonna
like
do. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Something a little bit different. A few days ago, 3 days ago, I was born, a long time ago, I was born before women were persons in Canada. And that was in 1929. And I came 6 months before they became persons. Anyway, I wrote a little thing about my arrival. And this is supposed to be a comedy, so. I came screaming into the world, naked and without even a name. No, I didn't want to leave my warm place for this cold one. No wonder. I screamed, someone was holding me by my feet and whopping me in the bum. I had to let everybody know I didn't like this one bit. It was cold on the 29th of March, 1929, Good Friday, windy and wet. In a small apartment overlooking the dam at Grand Falls, New Brunswick, which was under construction. Paul had even taken the day off from his job on the dam, I guess to be with Edna, my mother. After a bit of time, Grandma had checked me all over to see if I had my toes, arms, and fingers, as well as ears, eyes, etc. Somebody wrapped me up in a blanket and gave me to Dennis, my pa. His big face looked at me and he smiled. Behind him were his brothers, Arte, Clough, Will, Bert, as well as one sister, Agathe. Behind them, all was Grandfather Clough, a big man with a black mustache. They were all laughing, and I thought this was quite impressive, but I was tired, so I went to sleep. It was not long before afterwards, my grandmother made a loud noise and Pa jerked me a bit. He had lain on the floor with me under his arm. In no uncertain terms did his mother tell him, "You got that poor baby on the cold floor," she shouted. "Give him to me before he catches his death of cold." She grabbed me and into her arms and then passed me to my mom in bed. Mom smelled pretty good. It was nice and warm. Before I went to sleep again, I had been shown the everlasting power of mothers over their sons. The small woman, mother of them all, could translate herself into supreme power. Life was easy as a first grandchild with lots of uncles and aunts and grandmas and grandpas, food on demand, sleep whenever I wanted, and warm clothes. Oh yes, somebody washed me and cleaned me off, and somebody had to. I must admit I had a tendency to get dirty often, and that knack followed me all through my life. Thank you. Finished.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Gallery.
But I
Okay.
have a book published here.
Do you? Did you choose? What publisher did you end up choosing, Ephraim? I remember us talking about.
I got it printed by 6 colors up there.
When was it Friesen that you chose? After all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they employ all kinds of impaired people in
Okay.
that. And I just told him, do the best you can. He did well.
Mm.
And that was the way it was. From 1932 to 1938, a boy's view on a small farm right near where Preslak Motel was. And in 1938, my father got killed in an industrial accident in Ontario, and we lost the farm.
Oh, wow. They were hard times.
They were tough times. Mother was 28, was left with 4 boys.
Yeah.
And no social backup.
Right.
However, we all survived.
Yeah, you did, and did very well, I think.
Yeah.
Next up, I think, is Louise Chase. Are you ready? I forgot to say before Louise speaks that you can feel free to introduce yourself, where you're from, and what writing you're doing these days.
Okay. So my name's Louise Chase, and I'm in St. Andrews. I've been enjoying the camaraderie of 2 other poets who are at this table tonight. We've been doing a haiku exchange on a daily basis, and that's been very rewarding and transformative at many levels. So that's kept me accountable and plugged into this idea of community with other writers. So I found that quite rewarding as I do these open mic opportunities. So I was going to read just a short story. It's called Auguries of Innocence. Kind of stole it from William Blake, but I don't think he'll mind. So Auguries of Innocence. It was a timely revelation, and I held on to its memory throughout my childhood like a touchstone that something better existed. Perhaps revelation is too remarkable a term, but something had been revealed to me, something which I like to think even now as somewhat divine. My mother had composed a letter to the Almont Food Company complaining that there was a fly in a can of vegetable soup. It had been found dead and fully intact while she was going about the business of cooking for 2 growing children. I watched her sit at the table in the kitchen with a cigarette dangling from her mouth, eyes fiercely squinting as she began writing, to whom it may concern. She proceeded to read every sentence out loud to my younger brother, Marty, and I, as we stood at either side of her, obediently listening, our heads nodding up and down, trying to emphasize our approval with hopes we would soon be fed. I was eventually permitted to affix a postage stamp on the top right-hand corner of the envelope, and Marty was asked to lick the seal closed. My mother was proud. For us to be included in protesting this apparent atrocity somehow gave us greater legitimacy with her and raised our rank as more faithful children. The 3 of us then marched down to the mailbox at the end of our urban street as if the whole neighborhood were watching. My mother warned, however, that we were to tell no one. Any glory in this crusade to restore propriety in the world was to be kept entirely under her discretion and strict control. She later dressed for the occasion of telling my father about the incident and paced up and down the hallway of our small bungalow, anticipating his arrival. Had he refrained from going to the local pub, my father would have been home from work at roughly 5:30 that evening. When he still failed to show up by 10 p.m., my mother demanded that we all go to bed. I could see the disappointment in her tired and aging face as she unfolded the hideaway bed in the living room and took another cigarette to her small, expectant mouth. In the days that followed, she would not mention the letter to my father, nor to us again. I tucked Marty in bed that night and read from a book which had been given to us by our grandmother. It was an illustrated collection of New Testament stories and short prayers for children. Marty and I were in the habit of reading from this book every evening, and then afterwards we would fold our hands together and pray. We would pray for our parents and for our grandparents. We would pray for things we felt grateful about. But having been sent to bed quite desperately hungry on this particular night, we decided between the two of us that we would pray for food. My mother overheard us. She exploded into the bedroom and flatly insisted that we were nothing but ungrateful little children. We would not go to heaven. And Jesus, she said, was never going to come again because he didn't exist. We knew that she had been drinking, and so we did as the book had instructed us to do. We forgave her. Several weeks later, the revelation came. My mother was in the cellar looking through an old wardrobe and trying on clothes that didn't fit properly anymore. Marty and I were playing outside in the yard when an unmarked delivery truck pulled up in front of our house. We were forbidden to speak with strangers and immediately went indoors to watch from behind a curtained window as a tall, narrow figure climbed out from the truck's cab. His untrimmed hair was disheveled and tapered at the front into a dark, straggly beard. From the back of his truck, he pulled out a dolly and began to layer a pile of boxes. I counted 9 in total, and then watched the bearded man slide the back door of his truck so it closed and wheel the loaded dolly towards the front screen door of our house. It looks like our prayers have been answered, I muttered with calm authority of an 8-year-old. He looks like Jesus, responded Marty. Indeed, the delivery man did look a lot like the illustrated savior we had come to know so well from the Good News storybook of tales and prayers for children. But before I could stop Marty, he began yelling downstairs into the basement at our mother. Jesus has come! Jesus has come! My mother stomped up the stairs looking furious. She hated it to be interrupted. She hated when we hollered, and she hated the solicitation of any religious patron. Stop it, Marty, she insisted upon entering into the front hallway. Now, she continued, looking directly down at me, what is all this commotion about? Our prayers are answered. Jesus has come, Marty announced without pause. He didn't wear a seamless robe, but even in denim jeans and a Guess Who t-shirt, the delivery man did look quite convincing as he stood there waiting patiently behind the screen door. Shh, my mother scolded. It's not Jesus. Stop it right now, Marty. My brother's face was all alit and his eyes sparkled like tinsel. I stoically restrained any joy I felt and remained entirely quiet. I had a hunch that something good was happening, but I feared my mother. I positioned myself between Marty to keep him still and protected. How may I help you? My mother inquired of the man at the door. Mrs. Jenkins, he asked. Yes, she agreed. Jesus, Marty softly whispered, although loud enough for all of us to hear. Shh, my mother snapped back, with knit brow and an index finger pressing down on her narrow lips. The man smiled at my brother with kindness in his eyes, but I wasn't totally assured. I held Marty close to me and listened as the man continued to introduce himself. I'm from the Almont Food Company, madam, and these 9 crates of soup have been sent to compensate you and your family for your troubles and inconvenience. I have an envelope here as well with a formal written letter of apology enclosed from A.R. Whitman of the Customer Services Department. 9 crates, I thought to myself. There must be at least 40 cans in every flat. Although I couldn't do the math quickly enough, I knew it was a lot of food. My mother allowed the man to unload the 9 boxes of soup from his dolly and then watched him stroll back towards the truck where a group of curious spectators had gathered near the end of our driveway. Marty started jumping ecstatically up and down, crying, "Jesus, Jesus, Jesus," over and over again. "Hush, Marty, he isn't Jesus. He's from the Almont Food Company. You heard him. I wrote a letter. Don't you remember?" And quickly my mother began breaking open all the boxes to examine the various soup labels. We will never be hungry again, I thought. Wait until your father sees this. He doesn't even know I wrote that letter, my mother gloated. It was Jesus, my brother insisted with innocent defiance. "Stop it, Marty," she blurted back. "There isn't no Jesus. He didn't come. He's never gonna come. I wrote the letter. It was me. I was the one who wrote the letter." "Yes," Marty quickly resolved, "but who do you think put a fly in the can of vegetable soup?" So,
Excellent.
thanks.
Excellent. Excellent. Let me see. Who's up next? Elizabeth Fry Romanian. Remember to introduce yourself, Elizabeth. Let me see. Let me find you. There you are.
I think I'm not muted now, am I?
No, I can hear you.
Okay. So hi everyone, I'm Elizabeth Fry Romanian, and I've read a few times before. I live in Fredericton. I've been writing poetry for several years, although I just recently joined the Writers Federation. I guess the theme tonight was hope. I think that's what it was, but I am going to end on more of a hopeful note, but I don't really write very hopeful things generally. But anyway, I've got about 4 or 5 poems. They're all pretty short, so I don't think I'll take up too much time. The first one is called Death of a Deer. The driver of the car, her back to the police officer and the wounded deer. The suffering of the wounded deer. The rifle held with expertise. The shooting of the deer. The rifle shot at close range. 1 shot. The deer's last shudder within the pulsing light of the police car. Its last steamy breath in the bright golden autumn morning. The next one is called Did the Suddenness Leave His Mouth Open? This is about my cousin who years and years ago was, unfortunately, he was run over in when he was riding his bicycle. So I've just tried to capture something with his passing. Did the suddenness leave his mouth open? For Matthew. Was there time for a final thought? The muffled sound of singing voices of birds, the way the light falls into spaces and shapes all the right shadows, the possibility of falling in love with a woman's feet or her hands. Before the beginning of nothing set in, did he know the poetry of stumbling upon a mossy, muddy, uprooted tree stump, the sun bathing it in shining frost? When he died, was he looking upward toward the sun? Did the suddenness leave his mouth open? The next one is called Downtown OK Economy. Air conditioning still blasting in October, the smell of ready-to-eat barbecued chicken. A woman bends over the black plastic bulk food bins of the downtown OK economy, carefully measuring with the metal scoop the dry egg noodles on special today, now as cheap as macaroni. There is dust here and there on her black polyester pants, and the windbreaker will not keep her warm when she waits for the bus with her bag of groceries. I imagine at night she cleans an office building, washes the soiled coffee mugs piled in the sink, then lies on the floor to rest. Her eyes are straining, so intent is she on measuring just the exact amount of egg noodles for supper tonight. I continue to search the bins, but now nothing good is there to take away this hunger. This next poem I wrote several years ago, but it is called Good Friday, so I thought it might be a good one to read tonight. Good Friday. Here in this spot where in the early winter the staghorn sumacs once filled the air with crowns the color of blood, and the sun illuminates the Nashwauk River as it divides and redivides into stream after stream after stream. Sorry, I got mixed up here. Here in this spot of time and space, it is either God or nature which has me face myself, its truth, which can never be undone. And I just have one more. I hope I'm not taking too much time. Just one more. It's called Morning Laughter, so I'm trying to end on a more hopeful note. Morning Laughter. And this is about my brother, so I do use his name. His name is Aaron, and I use his name in the poem, so it was inspired by him. When we awoke, the sparsely leaved poinsettia staring down upon us. The walls were whiter, the living space larger, pomegranate-colored leaves scattered on top of us, and we were filled with mustard sun. I asked why things today were cluttered no longer, and in the murmuring voices of children, we guessed at reasons within the angles of expanding morning light, concluded that Aaron had pushed the walls beyond old boundaries with his shining laughter. This morning, his laughter is still glowing on the white, white walls. Thank you. Thanks very much. It's great to read. I'm looking forward to reading in person sometime, though. I think I'd feel less nervous somehow. I don't know. I'm not sure why. That doesn't really make sense. But anyway, it's great to have the opportunity. After working in an office all week, then it's nice to have such a nice creative change on the weekend. So
it was
anyway.
great. I loved that last poem. That was really beautiful.
That's a real oldie, but anyway, I was searching for something that was not so down and more up. So that's all I could find.
Next up is Bryn Harris. Bryn, make sure that you introduce yourself before you speak. I mean, before you read. I'm just going to spotlight you here.
Okay. I'm Bryn Harris. I'm living on Grand Manan, which is very nice and sunny today. I'm generally a poet, and I have brought 3 poems to this reading. And I agree with Elizabeth. It is really nice to be here, although I haven't read yet. My first poem is called Mantra. Here I was, spending 3 minutes, sitting down, not trying to accomplish anything, except maybe saying, here I was, spending 3 minutes, sitting down, not trying to accomplish anything, except maybe saying, here I was, spending 3 minutes, sitting down. I always, when I practice it, I always end it somewhere different. Anyway, my next poem, well, it's April, it's Poetry Month, and I love a thing called a Poem a Day challenge that on writersdigest.com. And you have these prompts by Robert Lee Brewer, and I find them very helpful. I get some reasonably good poems out of them. So yesterday, the prompt, the first day of the month, the prompt was an F-title poem. I wrote, freedom is fickle. By the way, this is the first draft and the second draft is still to come. I know it's out there. Freedom is fickle. First thought as you grow from baby to toddler, one foot after another, forward, forward, fleeing from handlers, fending off felons, and fixing your eyes on things far away. In fancy, fiction, and brutal fact, the fetters of fortune, the fickle sickle moon, and that single flickering star finding you. My probably last poem I'll read today is a bit longer, but it's I wrote it in April 2020, 2 years ago. In fact, I wrote it on hearing of the death of John Prine, which was April 7th. So we're coming on the anniversary. He actually died of COVID-19 complications. It's called Sweet Songs and Broken Radios, or No More Bad News at Breakfast, Please. Me and my tea and morning granola. We heard the news on Wednesday. That mustache, those eye bows were gone. That bowl of oatmeal staring you down. Tea steeped in memories. Wild oats. Hello out there, old young friend. But how could you know at 24 what it would be to age and fade? And that dust in my eyes is the coal. And that gravel in your voice says all the news just repeats itself like some forgotten dream. Yes and no. Grim figures march down the page, yes, but are nothing to me until one figure jumps up grinning and blowing kisses. You walk out and death walks in, as you first walked into 7 Broad Street on a 33 in 71. And me, too young to get it, really, but musically, I got it. Right on, man. Older persons in the house rollicked along, but we were all so very young then. And those tears in my eyes are the dust, and that gravel in your voice like some forgotten dream. But how could you ever know we all had a Muhlenberg County, every one of us with the black seam among the green? Goodbye to you, old friend. We'll end up sitting on a rainbow. But until that day, I'll dream by a green river, and please, no more news at breakfast. Thank you.
That was great, Bryn. Thank you very much. Fickle sickle moon. Is that what you said? Fickle sickle moon? I love that. Next up would be Corinne Heinemann. I'm just going to spotlight you here so that everyone can see you better. And you'll have to unmute yourself.
Am I unmuted? No?
I can hear you. We can hear you.
Hear me? Oh, good, good. Okay. I write under a pen name of Zoe Sutton Harris, which they're family names. My first published work comes out in April. In fact, the publisher, Fabula Argentea, is here today. That's Latin for silver story. And I'm very excited about it because someone took a chance on me. It's a short story about an old piano. But today, I'm reading chapter 10, a shortened version of a chapter from my memoir called Zigzag, Our Family Dance. It's now in the editing phase. My reading's not about hope, but it's about memories of growing up in a sweet, loving, but dysfunctional family. To set the stage, it's 1954, I'm 4 years old, and I'm living in a winterized cottage, a log cabin on the St. John River in the village of Ketapek, about 7 miles upriver from the Reversing Falls. So the chapter is entitled A Gray Fuzzy Spider. A woodshed attached to the back door off Grammy's living room harbored many stray cats Dad brought home. However, it also held an abundance of fuzzy gray spiders, most the size of nickels, hanging in thick webs from the rafters. A few granddaddy spiders lived out there too, quarter size. I didn't venture out to the woodshed often. Even kittens born under the stacked wood did not entice me into the woodshed. With surety, my spider phobia developed because my mother shared her fear of the 8-legged web builders. One winter night, the pipes under my grandparents' home froze. A trap door in the kitchen floor led to a crawl space under the log cabin. My dad descended into the dark hole, blowtorch in hand. Soon a muffled voice called from the darkness, "Penelope, bring a flashlight. I need your help." Mom came through the kitchen door wearing a loose white blouse and a red woven skirt gathered at the waist. She called back down the hole, "Dawn, don't make me come down there. I can lower the flashlight. I'm in a skirt and I just washed my hair." Mom's reluctance prompted my grandmother to scoff. "Penelope, go help your husband." Grammy left the kitchen muttering to herself, "And you didn't just wash your hair. There's no water." Mom hovered above the trap door. I sensed her fear. My father's voice came again, sounding exasperated. "Penelope, I need more light. I need you to hold the flashlight. Hurry up." Mom sat down on the floor, her legs dangling in the hole. Every fiber in my 4-year-old body screamed, "No, no, Mommy, please don't go down there." I edged closer to the hole. The smell of raw earth and cold air met my nose. Holding my breath, I watched my mother lower herself through the trap door. At first, quiet reigned. However, while Dad thawed out the pipes, he also irritated a hibernating fuzzy gray spider of the granddaddy variety. It fell down the back of my mother's frilly blouse. Shrieking echoed from below and reverberated into the kitchen. I screamed, terrified. My grandmother came running, looking alarmed. A loud thump reached our ears. My mother flew through the trap door, blood trickling down her face. She bumped her head on a floor joist. I became hysterical, clinging to my grandmother, burying my face in her apron. Seconds later, my father followed, swearing under his breath. Then a look of concern spread across his face when he saw the blood. My mother, in a lunatic dance, hopping around the kitchen, pulling at her clothes and swatting imaginary spiders out of her hair. Dad tried to grab her. "For God's sake, Penelope, that spider's in China by now. You're scaring Zoe." I believe to this day that event cemented my fear of spiders. Arachnids represent a small deviation from the strong woman I profess to be. Everyone's entitled to one baseless fear. Some spiders are dangerous. Consider the Brazilian wandering spider or Australia's funnel web spider. 15 minutes after the bite, you're dead. None of those lived in the crawl space or in Canada. My mom, dabbling in mixed messages, foisted a baseless fear of spiders on me. Then she did a complete turnaround, teaching me not to fear something that held the potential for striking me dead, and much faster than the funnel web spider. My great Grammy moved in to my grandparents' home when my mom was 16. With my birth 8 years later, 4 generations came together, sometimes clashing under the roof of our log house. Not long after the spider incident, my great-grandmother tried to take a chair, and me along with it, into a closet to hide from a thunder and lightning storm. She did this anytime a storm came through, but now she held me in her tight grip. The setting of a precedent loomed over my head. It marked the first time Great Grammy tried to take me with her. Her behavior amused 2 generations, and everyone thought her penchant for hiding in closets funny and eccentric. I turned to look at Mom, resisting going with my great Grammy. Mommy, I scared. Mom lost all sense of humor when her grandmother's fear threatened to infect me. My mother's sword came down swift and sure. She grabbed me by my other arm, jerking me from my great Grammy's grip. Mom took a stand. My child will not be afraid of a storm. I wasn't sure who to be afraid of, my mommy or my great Grammy. Mom seized the chair and yanked it from my great Grammy's hands, almost taking her down. She grabbed our raincoats and boots. In a flash, I found myself sitting on my mother's lap in my yellow slicker with the orange duck-billed hood. We sat on our hard-won chair in the middle of our gravel driveway while rain poured down. The thunder boomed and lightning flashed ragged around us. Soon the storm rolled on, leaving us dripping in its wake. Adding to my grandmother's distress that day, my father traumatized her further. Mama Jones, your metal corset stays act like lightning rods. The closet can't save you. My father's dry sense of humor, not appreciated by my great-grandmother, made Mom and Grammy giggle. I guess my mother chose what life lessons to impart to me, because we never sat on a chair in the woodshed looking at the antics of fuzzy gray spiders.
That's great, Corinne. Thank you very much. Takes me a while to remove the spotlight and unmute myself and that kind of thing. That's wonderful. I was wondering what it is about spiders that scares people so much. My children hate them too. They don't. It's not spiders. It's snakes for me. Yeah. Carol Martinaco, you're the next up if you'd like to read. Where are you? Let me see. Where are you? There you are.
I think I'm unmuted.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, I've just been enjoying everybody. I forgot that I was going to read. This is from a new book that I've just had published through Shoreline Press in Quebec. A friend of mine who bought the press and decided to publish her friends. So I'll read 4 or 5 poems. I'm not sure exactly how long it'll take, so stop me. The first one is Abalone. It's the first one in the book. And it's the earliest memory that I can write about. Abalone begins in a barefoot dance. Out the door the summer I was 5. Soles of the feet awakened by cold early morning dew. Flattening tracks in the iridescent grass, all the way to the garden to check on the purple and yellow iris I'd waited for days to unfold. Stepping into the slippery soil, I stubbed my toe on the shell, bent down to scoop it up, where it lay among shiny stones. And all the night's rain pooled in the watery curve, spilled through a neat line of holes along the outer arc. A stream of water washing my feet caught violet, grass green, white blue of clouded sky. Yet inside the shell, in wavery lines, all the colors of rain remained. And I thought, how perfect a world this is to live in. So the book's title is A Bowl of Orange Suns, and that comes from a moment with my grandson at age 15 months. So this is for Asher. Son, he proclaims from his perch on my lap, and jabs a stubby brown index finger insistently. Son, 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 he chants, but I am deep in conversation with his mother and fail to respond. Son, up close he shoves it cool against my cheek, barely able to balance its weight in his palm. Then I recall how yesterday, as I pushed his stroller around the lake path in early evening, he'd pointed to the orange ball hanging low among the trees, and I had named it for him. Sun? He tries again, shoving it firmly into my hand. Sun, yes, I agree. This one's an orange sun. We make up a song to sing its name. Years from now, we may be sitting at this same round wooden table, discussing metaphor. Today, we play catch the sun, juggle and nearly drop before returning the bright globe to the blue bowl in the center, to rest among a whole pile of other suns, those spheres of light we feast upon. Many of the poems in this book follow the motif of orange and have something to do with art. And so this one is called Figure Study with Oranges. The point of drawing has so little to do with the pencil, so much more with the mind and what moves through it in this act of seeing, really seeing object and shadowed shape across a checkered tablecloth. Feeling its skin for just the texture, remembering other skins I have touched. When you stop thinking long enough to look, it is all stored in the mind. All the oranges held, eaten, shared amongst siblings, then later your lovers, your children, and all that is not oranges. The scraping of graphite against the white square, a black and white cat at the screen door, scratching to be let in. This one is, I don't know if any of you were aware of the installation by the social artist Christo and Jean-Claude, his partner, in Central Park. But this one is for that event. It's called The Gates, February 2005 in Manhattan. Billowing scarves of saffron, a brilliance we visit briefly. What were you thinking, Christo and Jean-Claude? Flying flags of citrus. You could have chosen anything out of the vibrant spectrum, blue infinities of sky to calm the urban frenzy, green for the iridescent insistence of growth, perennial as leaves and grass, white as you once wrapped a seacoast, echoing clouds and snow. Instead, you chose the bold intensity of morning. February in Central Park, under gray metallic skies, gray buildings hedge the angular commons along winding public paths, luminous framed thresholds by the thousands, draped in flowing contemplative color, snap, whisper, flutter in the wind. So we who run, jog, stroll, meander, bike, skateboard, walk, wheel through in chairs, however we pass each other, momentarily through these open gates might be repeatedly awakened. And I'll just read one last, this is the last one in the book, Belief in the Afterlife. People always expect that I say something about that because of being a minister, but this is very much a poetic rather than a theological take. Belief in the afterlife need not be limited to humans. When it reaches the highest chakra, an orange becomes the sun, evaporates, is taken up into the source from which it emerged out of the vast no time, when the universe was itself an immense fiery orange. In death it may outclass its humbler origins, come back as Grand Marnier or Cointreau, posthumously promoted to a spirited rich aristocrat with a French title. Oranges in spring may rise out of the earth as daylilies, recognized in this disguise only by those who have themselves learned how to flower.
Thank you.
Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. That was really great. Thank you very much. Next up would be Trent Pomeroy.
Well, hi there.
Hi,
You can hear me okay?
I can hear you. Don't forget to introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm Trent Pomeroy, and I write short fiction and creative nonfiction, and I write some really bad poetry, but I'm not going to subject anyone to poetry tonight because it's bad stuff. This piece is a flash fiction piece, and it's a little bit of a science fiction piece. So I know that that genre is not for everyone, but I'll give it a crack here. It's called, the working title is Theodore Discovers His Purpose. Theodore is doing his exercises, the calisthenics he's done every day for 14 years. He's on his 11th push-up, lifting up from the floor when his intercranial aneurysm bulges like a water balloon and bursts. Muscle memory still functions, and his arms raise him into the extension position, but only his deltoids and triceps are devoting any time to his exercise program now. Theodore's brain is fully occupied with dying. And as he expires, Theodore experiences a phenomenon peculiar to the nearly dead. Unbound for an instant from time and space, his self rises above his body and looks down at it, then gazes into a future that does not include him. He sees his wife at the grocery store getting frozen dinners for one, and then later buying spices and fresh pasta to cook for a large, sweaty man that Theodore will never meet. He watches his daughter graduate, marry, have a child, lose a child. He looks on as the boreal forests burn, the oceans swell until Florida is underwater and Montreal is on the coast. His death is like a stone tossed into a cosmic pond. His essence ripples across light years and centuries. He turns his expanding vision to space, where a mile-long spacecraft that resembles a bean pod hovers outside the orbit of Mars. Effortlessly, he wills his spirit inside. The ship is a labyrinth, honeycombed with wet, dark tunnels, filled with pink creatures like ulcerated stomachs, scuttling on spindly flagella. His consciousness streams through viscous corridors, all converging on a steaming room lit by bioluminescent moss. Here, a creature the size of a bus and the shape of a pancreas lounges on a platform that must be a throne, for Theodore knows instinctively that this is the queen. He reaches out to her, fingers her alien mind. She sees him too. She senses him too. His spirit crackles like a solar flare. He can feel her fear. Theodore the mortal would be flabbergasted at this, but Theodore the bodiless soul takes it in stride. When the queen telepaths to him, it seems no more bizarre than a super sale announcement at Walmart. "Lord, is that you?" asks the queen, or more literally, "Is this the grand organ who deigns to slither near my soup hole?" Theodore tries to answer, but telepathy is a skill that takes years of training, even for a wraith. The best he can manage is groof, mahup, which means nothing to either species, but it's enough for the queen. "Thank you for answering my prayers, O Lord." Or really, "This vestigial entrail distends with your regard, O great viscera." In return, Theodore bubbles nonsense. "O great Lord, bless our invasion of this system," prays the queen. "O grand organ, secrete your holy bile on our upcoming digestion." Theodore is not the brightest disembodied bulb in the celestial sphere, but it's obvious even to him that A, the queen is one of those religious nut bars, and B, Earth is in big trouble. And now he can feel his brief jaunt across space and time coming to an end, the tug of whatever's next pulling him away. In the last plank instant of his time here, Theodore summons everything he can to broadcast a God's warning to the Queen. Leave this place, he thunders, in what he hopes are deific, telepathic tones. The earthlings are under my protection. I command you. But all of this is too complex for Theodore's minuscule psychic powers. It seems to come out more like boo. Then he's back in his apartment, dying. As his arms buckle and he falls face first into the living room floor, he watches the other universes collapsing as he dies. The one where he writes his best-selling novel, the one where he celebrates his 50th wedding anniversary, the one where he learns to play guitar, takes up cycling, reconciles with his son. Possibilities disintegrating into dark matter and cosmic dust. But this is the timeline where the Centaurians halt their invasion of Earth, change course, and set their light sails for Aldebaran 5, urged on by a queen quivering in religious ecstasy and the fear of her God. This is the universe where Theodore saves the world.
Well, that was amazing. Is that part of a larger story, Trenton?
No, that's just a.
It's just a short story. Wow, that's really cool.
Well, thank you.
Diane Reed, I see you, Diane. It's your turn.
Trent, fantastic. And I would just like to thank you for your generous contributions to everyone's work here tonight. It was just delightful to read your feedback. I have just one poem to read, and excuse me, please. The theme, of course, is hope. And what I'd like to share with you is an early published work. I don't know if anyone can see this. QWERTY, can you see that okay? Everyone? Just c'est moi au coin de livre, okay? Right here. Wasn't my first published piece. I have Fiddlehead to thank for that, but QWERTY, this goes back almost 20 years ago, and back to beginnings, I thought would be helpful. And I thought, what could be a better choice right now as the sun is actually beginning to shine, maybe, and what could be more hopeful during this time would be to cast our lines in the water, okay? And the casting of that line to anyone who loves to fish, no matter what age, is probably one of the most hopeful acts we could have. And this poem pays homage to those, many of our forebears who some of you have had the great fortune to work with. I certainly did. So without further ado, the crippled Lecky. Strikes on the Ted Colson lure occur at the end of the downward fall, except when trolling. The wobble of the Colson at the tip of a lifting rod attracts the fish, the flutter, as it lowers, triggers, strikes. Set your hook hard if the line slackens, if you feel resistance, or if you feel the line twitch. For medium to deep water trolling, use a wee Bernard or Eric Miller #2 flasher with a trailing 1.5 ounce crippled Lecky on a 2-foot leader. With a downrigger, 4 ounce, 8 ounce, or 7 pound 1 ounce sizes are best. The distance of the Miller behind the release clip can vary from arm's length to 120 feet, depending upon wind and water clarity. For flatlining, particularly in floodwater, either Miller may be employed. Troll slowly, occasionally dropping the rod backward on the breast to produce a fluttering action. When casting or spinning with the coxswain, Use rod positions from 9:30 to 11.
Hello.
Undulate the tip, loosen the line, then tighten in the manner of a fiddlehead. Retrieve with a pull forward, drop backward motion. Give the cogswell room. Lift your rod, drop the tip back to 9:30 and reel in any slack. Repeat. Pause occasionally after dropping back to 9:30. Vary your retrieve speed until you feel a sharp jerk on the line. The Gibbs minnow is an effective jigging lure. Tie your line directly to the Gibbs. Do not use a snap swivel. Lower it to the depth at which the fish are feeding. Place your rod tip a few inches above the surface. Raise it 2 to 4 feet. Then quickly drop the tip and allow the Gibbs to fall. If you feel any unnatural bump or tap, strike hard and fast. The Gibbs should be bent in a gentle S. A banana bend at either end produces poetry. Perfect in every detail, the Bartlett offers anglers the flash and attraction of a tuned spinner with the wicked action of a sinking balsa lure. A pair of Bartletts is lethal for smallmouths and crappies. The sink grade of the Bartlett makes sockeye run under the skin. For maximum fight, consider the Don Mackay. A snap swivel is supplied with each. Use it. For vertical or horizontal jigging, tie your line to Mackay's over 40 ounces. To remedy line twist or hook to line tangling, attach a ball bearing swivel at least 6 feet up. Vertical jigging with the crippled lecky is the most precise and thorough of all techniques for the suspended or bottom-oriented catch. When the crippled lecky is consistently angled in or directly below a large concentration of bait fish or slightly above predator fish, it has no equal. Vary your rod lifts from dead slow to fast in a pumping motion at the ice house. Fish on Fridays till a successful pattern develops. Pause for a few years after the lure has settled. That's it. As far as what else is happening. Well, I know the various ways of playing with lines and a lot of fun and a lot of humor. And I thank these people that have come before, and it's so delightful to see so many familiar faces and so many new ones. A great evening. So thank all of you. Great, Rhonda. Thanks for hosting.
You're very welcome. It's really great to hear everyone come together, and it's very encouraging too, right? We've had such a period of isolation that even online, it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. And at least we can draw together, even though we live in different places. So that's the one great thing about Zoom. Stephen Spears, you're next. If you would like to read, where is Stephen?
I'm hiding.
Hiding.
Yeah. All right.
Do I see your face? Oh,
I'm
there you
here.
are. There
Yep,
you are. I see you. Okay.
I'm here. And yes, I'm Stephen Spears. I write some poetry and mostly lately short stories and I'm gonna want to work tonight. Fairy tales and horror stories is what I'm concentrating right now. Most of the horror stories. I will not be subjecting to you at any of that tonight. I'll read some of the poetry instead. So, alrighty here. Got a few of them here. So, start with Awoken. With each step upon unfamiliar shore, wet sand squeezes up between my toes. But there you are in the night, in the sky. You shine down on me, pale, luminescent, again mesmerized by your beauty seeping into me, into our memories. You are even more lovely for that. You are something more infinite and knowing, and you know me of long ago like waves on rocks, like their crash on this far-flung shore. Slowly a smile parts my lips, remember those times, too few, that we shared deep in the primeval forests, two spirits of the earth, separate but whole. Time passed, our roles changed, but still love hung above as I roamed the oldest woods dancing. I will show you my love of you, the sheer joy of your love, your amusement, your patience. You hang above this far-flung shore, patient till Beltane comes, and we can be loving and loved, oh my darling. It is so hard being separate from you. It hurts my soul, my very being, cries out for your touch, my heart in agony. You above me, out of reach, I scream my love to the firmament sky. Rain falls in response. Your tears soak my face as I gaze upwards, as the world transformed, and the peoples forgot about us. We both faded a little. I became memories like mist, seen but unable to grasp. And even as my memories are like a haze, you I cannot forget, my love. Now I have awoken. All rushes back to me. I howl with joy and anguish. Under your gaze, I fall to my knees on this far-flung shore and beg you to forgive me, my weakness. Wet sand underneath me, you above me, our love between us. Eternally I am yours, I have always been. With a cry, with abandon, I motion to embrace you. I dance for once again, my beauty in the firmament. My feet gaining their confidence once more. For you, my love, I dance. Oh, my love, I dance for you. As you shine gloriously down upon me, I remember it all. My feet beat upon the wet sand of this far-flung shore. Oh, my love, I thank you for awakening me. Now my feet move swifter with the rhythm of earth, Lord of the forest once more. When Beltane comes, we shall be together again. We shall celebrate again the rites of spring, dance around the fire at Beltane. Hand in hand, we shall jump the flames and laugh, and unite in the hollow deep in the wild woods. My howls echo across the water, feet pounding on wet sand, dancing for my eternal love of you on this glorious far-flung shore. All right, I got another one here, hidden inside, open on the page. I have been accused of not showing my feelings, a failure to communicate, as if no emotions to express whatsoever. Admittedly, there is truth to this, but only some. You see, it's more complicated than that. I do not feel, it is that I feel too much. Bulwarks I must construct to protect myself from them, social media, cell phones, the internet, a constant onslaught. Coating my eyes with the backwash of the world, I must construct strong, thick barriers. Mortared with tears of frustration and pain, how can one convey their feelings when assaulted? To speak from the heart is a dangerous prospect at best, for there are those who will lash out when you speak, and in making you feel worthless, they feel worthy of living. But that is just an illusion they paint for themselves. My feelings, my pains, and my loves hidden in my walls, bastion where others cannot touch them, but not know them either. I cannot tell you if these barriers are for good or ill, though I suspect some of both. My emotions I express through printed word, spread out upon the page for all to see, if they so wish. But a question remains. Will anyone take the time to learn how I feel? All right, quicker one here. I'm not like you. My nature is not like yours. My soul is not like yours. My desires are not like yours. I am not like you. I am different. I live by my own rules, not the crowd's. I am unique, my own person, my own soul. But that does not mean I do not care. I care about others, about the world. I want the same things you do in life. I choose to live my life differently. My heart beats to a different rhythm. My soul vibrates at a different frequency. So do not look at me as someone to be feared, for I am not to be feared. Embrace the difference. For if we are all the same, then something is lost. And if that something is lost, what becomes of us? Through our differences, we are stronger, adaptable. Let's celebrate our differences, not fear them. Let us be what we are, humans of differences, many souls, many hearts, beating to their own rhythm. And one last one that I did during a poetry class the other night, a couple weeks ago. Something just a little humorous. A computer's view of the author. Oh, my dear Dios, he's sitting in front of me once again. With a blank look upon his face, he stares into my screens. Slack-jawed, foolish human, he taps my keyboard as if he's angry, smashing my keys as he types out his vague, unformed thoughts. I try to help him, suggesting words, phrases. It doesn't help. A fleshy Dr. Frankenstein, except he's trying to piece together the English language. But that corpse does not rise, and I wish lightning would strike him at times. Still, once in a while, he does come out with something not entirely horrible, but not entirely good either. But he tries, and I will give him that. But then he will get stuck and stare at my keys. You can almost hear the wind whistling through his ears, not even slowed down by the emptiness in his head. And then he will attack the keys again, banging out something like a less than hairy monkey. A monkey would have a better chance at writing Shakespeare or even Bronte than he has of forming a legible sentence. Sigh. Well, I guess it could be worse, I suppose. He could be using me to record singing. Oh, dear gods of electrons and diodes, please never let that happen. That's it.
I really like that last one. I don't think I've ever thought about what my computer thinks of my face.
It was one of those exercises Kayla got us doing in her poetry master class, and something just came up and
Right.
that came out.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so our last reader tonight is Jane Timms. Jane, you're always at the end, I guess, because it's your last, your name is T.
I'm at the end. That's because of my husband, though, right? It's his name. Although my last name originally started with an S. So anyway, I'm going to read 2 poems from a book called A Glimpse of Waterfall. And I've loved waterfalls in this province since I first moved here, and we've tried to see as many as we can. These are 2 poems that one of them is actually about a waterfall, and the other one is about a small brook that I know. The first one is about Smith Falls. It's on the Kingston Peninsula. It's quite easy to find if you decide you'd like to go to look at some of these places. There's a small cave at the base of the waterfall, and so this is about that small cave. It's called Shelter. Sip of tea, candles lit in evening, a lap quilt tucked, relief from freshet. Cave, respite beneath 2 newly reconciled slabs of bedrock, where vulnerable sediments fail, succumb to the reach of water. Spurt and shard, the brawl subsides, and damp recedes. Pollen settles, concentric rings, and space is made to occupy. The second poem is about a creek, a stream, a creek, near our camp in Ottenabog Lake. It's down towards Gagetown. And occasionally I'll take my little red boat out and explore the creek. It's mostly marsh, but there is a sinuous thread of creek that runs through the marsh. Characteristics of creek. Clumsy row in the marsh pond to seek the course of the creek, the strand of water's flow, to nourish pond, define its shape, conduit to the lake. A slender S through emergent grass, pondweed and cordgrass vague, deviation from clarity, hyaline, the interface of fresh water and salt. Pumpkin seed, turn their flat bodies to intercept the flow. Find the break in the mat of sedge, narrow simplicity of weed-free bottom. Search and find inevitable thread in flow of story, theme to bind words and water into one. And that's it. Thanks.
That was wonderful. And Jane, you are you're one of your books is shortlisted for New Brunswick Book Award, was it not?
Yeah, it is this one.
Yeah.
And it's shortlisted for the Fiddlehead Poetry Book Prize. So we have to wait until June, but it was
right.
was wonderful to be shortlisted.
Yes, that's wonderful. It's great news. Congratulations. We all congratulate you.
Thanks.
Well, that concludes the evening. I want to thank you all for coming. It was just wonderful reading. And I'll remind you about WordSpring the first week of June. We have to find out if Jane won. So we all have to come. And so there'll be one more. There'll be one more open mic that will be the first Saturday in May. And then in June, I guess that it will be preempted by WordSpring. So be watching the website for the event pages, and we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.
Rhonda,
Yeah.
it's Bryn. So if we don't say otherwise, this radio station will be broadcasting this.
Yes. Is Chris here? Chris Wanamaker? You can speak if you want, Chris. Yes, it's 107.3, I think it is in St. John.
It is indeed. It's Chris here. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah,
Hi.
we can hear you.
Yeah, hi, Chris.
Yeah, so it's 107.3 FM, and I don't know when this particular broadcast will be. Probably within a couple of weeks would be my guess.
Okay, so Rhonda, you'll let us know, or Chris, you'll let us know?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
sure.
I'll let you know as soon as I know. Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll pass it on.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bryn, and thanks, Chris, for being here. Thank you all. It was really wonderful tonight. Have a great
Thank you, Rhonda.
Okay.
Thanks, Rhonda.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rhonda.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.